felt was really, really important to their intervention, and these are kind of the quality issues when we talk about our program and what are the elements to a good program. They said, we said one thing in many ways for a specified period of time. So they identified through formative research what are the key determinants limiting these male clients' behavior to use a condom consistently and correctly every time. And each state team identified a creative brief and materials, pre-tested these, but made sure that everything that they did was adapted specifically for the state context, that were based on the determinants as they identified in the track segmentation. They pre-tested them, and they stuck with those thematic messages or themes for 3 to 6 months. So when we talk about length of time and how we're able to measure, they really stuck with really focusing on some key themes and tried not to kind of dirty the waters with a bunch of disparate messages and themes. And so their total communication budget, the total was estimated at $2.5 million. And the results, as reported by the track, they estimated that they reached 96%, so an overwhelming majority of their target population. That was estimated at about 3.5 million. And they documented consistent condom use among clients of female sex workers, a documented increase of 28%, which is a considerable increase over the period of 2006 to 2008. Now that's as documented by track. We get lots of arguments about gaze control and, you know, are these comparative groups, but this is what we're using right now, and this is what what they were able to document. So who knows how many DALIs, BCC DALIs, the India program, documented that they averted? Zero? Brian laughs. Okay. Brian knows. Okay, so this is their anniversary DALIs. So at the time when we originally wrote this case study, and this case study is up on Kicks, it was 13,400, I think, roughly. Anniversary DALIs, Hung may explain this better, but basically the programs that are successful, the kind of the math and the thinking is that they continue to avert BCC DALIs if all things remain the same.
If the intervention continues, but we don't have follow-up track data to do the evaluation, then we assume the behavior changing effect continues for 3 years.
So as of December 2010, on the last health impact report, actually it's not on the last health impact, but on our table for BCC DALIs averted for India, 28,000 BCC DALIs have been averted for this India program. This is obviously our highest. Well, maybe not so obvious to you, but it is our highest program, or highest DALIs averted for a program. And, you know, there's also been a lot of conversation about quality and whether or not we know whether or not we're implementing things that are a better practice, but a lot of things that happen in the India program are a better communication practice. I'm not necessarily saying that's the only reason that they averted BCC DALIs, but there are some things that they did that are documented that they did well and that are supported by other better practices in terms of communication programs. Then there's some other contextual things. And the way that we produce these case studies for India, and we don't have any point of comparison necessarily to say whether or not this is the universe, this is the highest number they could avert. But if we were to say that, you know, they did pretty well in terms of the number of BCC DALIs they've averted, but I'm not saying that. But could they have possibly averted any more? So on each of the case studies, we looked at kind of some scenarios. What might be some things that could have increased BCC DALIs averted? I'm not going to get into the details here about the elements of the calculation, but infection probability, market share, and all that stuff are elements that go into what our potential opportunity is for BCC DALIs. So there's some scenarios in the case study that said, okay, if possibly they were to intervene in states where there is a higher HIV or STI prevalence, such as these listed, they possibly could have averted more BCC DALIs. Again, where we implement, we know, is subject to a whole lot of other things, donor demands, where we have capacity, etc. But the purpose here is to indicate that, yes, there's a potential that we could have averted more BCC DALIs with this program. And then there's this is kind of a benchmark number. In a region with 13%, as Manipur is, if we possibly reached even fewer men in the target audience, we could have possibly reached 27,000. That number is the number And this was calculated by the metrics team. That's on the case study in comparison to what the original number was, which is 13,000. So if you think, that's lower than what you estimated, it was because it was in comparison to that original number. So again, benchmarking, but the point of this is to get us to think more critically about our program and what could be some things that could influence BCC's DALYs. So the other thing that we've put on this case study, I don't know how well you can see this, we wanted to have a comparison here. What do BCC DALYs compare, or how do they compare with product DALYs? Metrics did this calculation, so they can talk to you about what the basis of the calculation was. But we said that in India, cases averting 13,000 DALYs may seem low, but to avert just as many product DALYs, India would have to have sold approximately 40 million condoms. They can talk to you about the details, but what we were trying to do with that is to put it in context. Is this really a low health impact, or is this significant? And let's compare it to something that we think is significant. And 40 million is not insignificant, I would say. Okay, so we've probably many of us in this room have heard about Kenya. We have an active team and a very vocal team there who have talked about, these BCC DALYs, done all this work, we've done all this work, and our BCC DALYs are also anemic. So Kenya was another program that had averted BCC DALYs through their Pour Your Heart Out Talk program, implemented between 2005 and 2007. Targeted sexually active young men, aged 15 to 24. It was a largely mass media driven program with some complementary IPC. There was a local drama series as a part of it. So they estimate that they exposed, or 58% of youth, their target youth, were exposed to the program. Estimated target audience was 3.9 million. And significant behavioral impact. Reported increase in frequency of condoms with casual partners, which is the behavior they were targeting, at almost 20%. So an increase from 57.9% to 69.4%.